Hello, Gargoyle Nation. Welcome back once again. As always, I'm your host, Desi C. And back in 2001, Disney released the animated movie Atlantis, The Lost Empire. It had the voices of some fantastic people like Michael J. Fox, Cree Summer, Leonard Nimoy, Corey Burton. You know, just a fantastic cast. Some that, if you look, did also work on Gargoyles, that sort of thing. But it flopped. More than likely, it was due to the competition that it had upon its release, like Shrek, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, The Fast and the Furious, and Dr. Dolittle 2 all came out at the same time. So that could have had a hand in its not very good box office ratings, numbers, all that stuff. Due to that, Disney canceled the planned spin-off series, Team Atlantis, an underwater Disneyland attraction, and a volcanic Magic Kingdom attraction based on it. I didn't realize when this movie came out they were putting everything into it, but they really had high hopes for it, didn't they? And also, before I keep going, I will interrupt by saying, if you have not seen Atlantis, The Lost Empire, I highly recommend you do. It's a really good movie. So obviously, why am I talking about this movie on a Gargoyles channel? Well, not only does it have some connections to some obvious names, like, Cree Summer and such, it was going to involve Gargoyles. So behind the scenes, we had Tad Stones as producer. And, if you remember my video on the history of the show, or if you haven't watched it, by all means, Tad was the one who suggested to Greg that Gargoyles should have a big heroic gargoyle to be added as the dramatic male lead, which led Greg to create Goliath. We also had Greg Guler as the lead character designer for the series. And we had Greg Weisman as the voice director, as well as a writer for a few of the scripts. So because this show was being worked on before the success or inevitable failure was determined for the movie, a lot of work had been done before it was canceled. They were a third of the way through production. Scripts and voice work were nearly complete, and storyboards had begun on many episodes. But 3 episodes had been completed and were later re-edited in a direct-to-video sequel, Atlantis: Milo's Return. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you at this point are going, okay, get to the point where the gargoyles are involved. I'm getting there. So one episode, titled The Last, was written by Greg Weisman. Shocker, I know. This was a pseudo-crossover with Gargoyles taking place in France in 1920. With permission from Tad Stones and Jay Fukuto, apologies if I messed that up, Greg was allowed to tell a new gargoyle story in this Atlantis series. In the episode, we have Fiona Canmore, played by Sheena Easton, aka Fenella, Banshee, and Robin Canmore, smashing gargoyle statues at Notre Dame Cathedral, only for the sun to set and the Gorloy to make her escape, and injuring Fiona in the process. And Gorloy is the Atlantean word for gargoyle. Whether or not the word is purely Atlantean or derived from whatever the ancient gargoyles may have called themselves is still unknown. The Gorloy makes her way to Paris's catacombs to dig for the praying gargoyle, where she encounters Queen Kida, Mole, Vinny, and Obi. After a brief struggle, Kida identifies Demona as the Gorloy and explains how long ago the Gorloy were allies of her father, the King of Atlantis, and were regarded as trusted friends. Elsewhere, Sweet and Milo have agreed to help Fiona hunt down the Gorloy and rendezvous with Kida and the others, only to find that Kida has formed an alliance with the creature. Of course, this being Demona, she uses Mole to dig up the praying gargoyle before tying him up and escaping back to Notre Dame with it. It's still Demona, guys. It may be a different series, but it's still Demona. She uses it to cast a spell to animate all the stone gargoyles in Paris. But of course, they aren't living gargoyles. They're just stone brought to life, planning to use them to wipe out every human in the city. It's Demona. Night falls once again, and Sweet and Fiona confront the Gorloy. Sweet eventually comes around to thinking the Gorloy does have a legitimate gripe, and tries to put an end to its feud with the Canmores. As expected, a huge battle takes place in the skies of Paris, and Sweet destroys the praying gargoyle by dropping it from the top of the Eiffel Tower, and saves the Gorloy's life by allowing her to escape, hoping that the act will change her. It is Demona. The last thing we see is the remains of the praying gargoyle and the Gorloy swooping down from the sky and snatching up the Atlantean crystal that was hidden within it. And yes, of course, Greg did get Marina Sirtis to reprise her role as Demona. Because who else is Demona? No. Greg was asked at the 2002 gathering if this story was canon, because I know a lot of this stuff often pops up in people's minds. So if the story was canon in the Gargoyles universe, and if it tied Atlantis into the Gargoyles universe as well. So was there some... Yeah. His answer? He has his own plans for Atlantis. The events in Gargoyles and Team Atlantis take place in 2 different universes, and the last was the one place where they intersected. And what about the destroyed praying gargoyle? Well, thanks to the crystal, the statue can regenerate itself over a period of 60 years if kept on holy ground. And sure enough, 60 years later in 1980, Demona returns to Notre Dame to retrieve the statue as seen in Hunter's Moon Part 3. Sorry, spoilers. I keep forgetting to give that warning. We also see Demona retrieving the crystal from the remains of the praying gargoyle at St. Damian's Cathedral in 1996 in invitation only. Sorry if you haven't read those comics. I really gotta remember to give spoiler alerts. So the story itself is canon in training, meaning any of this information is subject to change before it becomes canon. But neither the movie nor the rest of the series would have been canon. But Greg has stated that he plans to use the story in the comic book series. So keep your eyes out. And I have to once again reiterate how Gargoyles fans are the best fans. Because at the 2003 gathering, a group of fans pooled together to purchase the voice tape, script, and partial storyboard for the episode. Apparently, seeing the latest progress was a regular event at the gatherings. But of course, the gathering came to an end and therefore lacked a regular venue to be viewed. That is, until 2014 at Convergence, where the 20th anniversary of Gargoyles was celebrated with a showing of The Last. And unfortunately, that appears to be the only place where it's been seen. So if you haven't been able to attend those cons in the past, sorry. Whether or not Greg will be willing to show it at a future Convergence when he's invited, who knows? But that is what it is. We simply have an image of what Demona would have looked like, and that's about it. So as always, be kind to yourselves, be kind to one another, and be the good that you want to see in the world. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.